Bonjour. Welcome to Wahsa Distance Education Center's radio Zoom classes. This is MEL3E, grade 11 workplace math, and I am the teacher, Bronwyn Slade. If you'd like to participate live today, you can call the Wahsa studio at 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017. You can listen on the radio at 91.9 FM and also on the television at Bell Express View channel 972. You are always welcome to join live through the Zoom link, which is available both for me, your teacher, and also your DEC. Our classes are scheduled Monday through Thursday from 9 until 10 in the morning. And we are in our 4th week of our 9-week course. At this point, you should be submitting some work for marking. So a reminder that the support questions, the ones with a little pencil icon, are practice problems. They're not for marking. You decide which ones and how many to do. If you understand a concept, feel free to skip. If you need more practice, please ask, and I'm happy to send you more practice. The key questions are the ones with a little key icon, and they're the mark questions. So you need to do all of these questions, showing all of your work, your steps, and your thinking. So then how do you actually submit your work for marking? Well, there's 3 methods. The first is to scan your work and send it electronically. You can scan using a device. If you have an Apple device, you can use the Notes app. If you have an Android device, you can use the Google Drive app. These are fairly straightforward point and click scan functions, but if you're unsure and you need some support, on my YouTube channel, there are tech tutorials that will walk you through how to actually do these scanning using these apps. So go check it out there. I'm also happy to help if you'd like some more support. Then you can send it to me either through email to studentwork@nnec.on.ca and CC it to bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca. Or you can also send it to me through Facebook Messenger, where my name is B.Slate Wahsa. The second method is to drop it off into Lookout. We have an outdoor mailbox at our location, 74 Front Street. We are the bright red building next to the post office, and we have a small white mailbox next to our side entrance. The third method is to hand it into your DEC. Your DEC can either send your work through the Express or fax it to 807-737-1732 or toll-free fax to 1-800-463-7852. Students can also fax in their work. Just let us know it's coming because sometimes things get lost in the shuffle. If you'd like to connect with me through social media, both my Facebook and my YouTube channel are under the name B.Slate Wahsa. All of our radio Zoom classes are recorded and I upload them to YouTube shortly after broadcasting. And then you can find links from either my Facebook or finding them directly on my YouTube channel. We have a playlist there called MEL3E where all of our classes can be found. There are also short videos that explain common errors and confusing concepts. So that can be a really good place to go if you're struggling with something and you need a little extra support. Math is a really visual subject, so I strongly encourage you to access the videos either by joining me live through Zoom. Whether or not you want to talk to me, you don't have to, that's fine. Or by watching the replays on YouTube. Both are great options. If neither of those work for you, let me know and I'm happy to send you a copy of the recordings so you still get the full experience. So if you have any questions or concerns, please reach out and connect with me. That's why I'm here. You can email me at bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca. You can connect with me through Facebook at B.Slate Wahsa. You can call me at the office at 807-737-1488, extension 2209, or toll free 1-800-667-3703. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., though I teach from 9 until 11, so that is not a great time to try to get a hold of me. Today's lesson is lesson number 11, and we are going to be learning about credit cards. So our learning goals are that at the end of this lesson, you will be able to make and justify decisions to borrow from credit card companies. You will understand the various credit card costs, and you'll be able to explain the effects of carrying a balance on a credit card. The success criteria are that you can identify the pros and cons of credit cards. You can explain annual fees, APRs, cash advance fees, and minimal payments. And you can calculate the cost of carrying a balance. When will you use this in real life? Well, we are making connections and seeing patterns. So not only are we learning about credit cards, which are an important tool in our financial world, but we are also looking to see the benefits and the drawbacks of different things. We're making those connections. We're seeing the patterns of different financial institutions, things like that, so that we can make informed decisions for ourselves. But first, let's activate our brain with some mental math. I don't believe in mad math minutes. They cause stress and anxiety in students and generally don't teach them anything. So instead, I like to focus on developing strategies that get you thinking and get you developing skills that you are comfortable with. So our question today is 16 times 29, and we are using the strategy of making a landmark. So what that means is that we are going to convert. We're going to do a question that is similar to this question to help us figure out this question. So 16 and 29 are, neither of them are really friendly numbers, but 29 is pretty close to 30. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a landmark of 30. I'm going to times 16 times 30 and figure what that out is. And then I'm going to use that to figure out what 16 times 29 is. So 16 times 30, well, I know that 10 times 30. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break my 16 into 10 plus 6, and I'm going to do 10 times 30. And then add that to 6 times 30. I'm just writing out my steps so that you can see what it is that I'm actually doing. So 10 times 30 is going to be 300. And 6 times 30 is going to be 180. Because 6 times 3 is 18. So 6 times 30 is 180. So in total, it's going to be 480. So 16 times 30 is 480. Okay, so then how did I get from 29 to 30? Well, I added one, but I added one group, not just one individual thing. So I added one group of 16. So in order to figure out what 16 times 29 is, I need to subtract 16. I need to subtract one group of 16 from 480. So that's going to be 480 take away 16. Well, 80 take away 10 is 70. And then take away another 6 is 64. So 464. Sorry, I got a little squish there. And that's how we can make a landmark, to use that to use friendly numbers in order to do multiplication that might not be so friendly. All right, mine's on. What prior learning do we need to know for today? I just want to talk briefly about credit ratings or credit scores. So a credit score is a 3-digit number that represents how likely a credit bureau thinks you are to pay your bills on time. It can be an important part of building your financial confidence and security. There are 2 main credit bureaus in Ontario. I don't know if this might be Canada-wide. I'm not sure. I'm sorry. It is at least in Ontario. And they're called Equifax and TransUnion. So how to maintain or improve your credit score? You want to establish your credit history. You want to pay your bills on time and in full. You don't want to leave any. You don't want to only pay part of your bill. You want to pay it all. You want to avoid applying for too much credit. You don't want to have a whole bunch of credit cards or a whole bunch of loans. And you want to stay within your credit limit. So you don't want to go over your credit card limit, which they'll let you do a little bit, but then that's showing you that you're not a responsible credit user. So what is a good credit score? The credit score is on a random range. I don't know why it's like this. I don't know where it comes from. But in Canada, the credit scores range from 300 to 900. The lowest you can have is 300. The highest you can have is 900. Neither of those are exactly likely, but that's the range. And generally a good credit score is anything above 660. So you can see on this chart, if you have a poor score, so you have a number, your credit score is between 300 and 559, then you'll find it difficult to get approved for any kind of loan or credit card or anything like that, because your score is saying that there's no proof that you are good at paying back your credit. You're good at borrowing money and then sending it back. A fair credit score is between 560 and 659. So that is, you're probably only approved for secure products such as secure credit cards. So you won't have as many options. If you have a good score between 660 and 724, then you have a reasonable chance of getting approved for credit. And you may even get an okay interest rate. Another thing with a poor or fair credit is that you might get approved for something, but you might have a really high interest rate, because in order to deter you from not paying it back, because then you have to pay back extra money. If you have a very good score, so between 725 and 759, you're likely to be approved for most credit card products or credit products, and you'll probably get a good interest rate. And then if you have a score of 760 or above, you have excellent credit. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to be approved for everything, but your chances are really good for having really good credit if you have good credit of 760. Various things affect your credit score, like we talked about not paying bills back on time or bills in full and carrying balances, applying for lots of credit. So you want to try not to do those things so that you can have a good credit score, so that even if you don't want it or don't need to use it, you still have that option in case it comes to a point where you do need it or you do want it. All right, active learning. Let's look at this credit card stuff. So a credit card is tied to a credit account with a financial institution. When you use the card, you're borrowing money from the credit card issuer. So it's not free money you are borrowing. It's like having a little loan, but you're already approved for it, but it's basically a loan. You can use a credit card to purchase goods or services with any merchant that accepts credit cards. So if you go into a store that says they have like a poster or a sticker on the door or something that says accepts Visa, MasterCard, American Express are the 3 common cards in Canada. So then you can use a credit card there. Here are the 3 main companies, as I just said: Visa, MasterCard, American Express. So they are going to say on them, this is the Visa logo. So a credit card isn't necessarily coming directly from Visa. You might get it from a bank, a credit union, or even a retail store. So this card that I'm showing you is from a credit union. It's a Visa card, but it's through the credit union account. Or you can get a card through a bank. So this one is an RBC account. So it's going through RBC, but it's a MasterCard credit card. This is the symbol for MasterCard. And then, or you can also have something that's like a store card. Like this is an example of Costco. Costco for a while was connected to American Express. So it's an American Express card, but it's connected to Costco. So there's other places that might have a store card, that like grocery stores, Walmart or things like that, have a card that is connected to the store as well as to the actual credit card company. Okay, so let's learn a little bit of vocabulary. So credit limit means the maximum amount of money you can owe at one time. So you can't That's much they're saying, we're willing to lend you this much money at one time before we won't lend you anymore until you pay it back. The balance is the amount you owe on your credit card. So your credit limit might be $2,000, but your balance might only be $100 because you only spent $100 and you've only borrowed $100. And so you still have more room, more credit available. So available credit is the difference between your credit limit and your balance. So for example, what I just said, that $2,000 is your credit limit, but you've only used a balance of $100. So that means you have $1,900. That is your available credit is left for you still to borrow. Your APR is your annual percentage rate. It's the annual cost of borrowing money with your credit card. So similar to the interest rates that we've been talking about in simple interest and compound interest, your annual percentage rate is what they call it in the credit card world, but it's the same idea. It's your interest rate. A cash advance means that instead of using your credit card to purchase something, you use your credit card to get cash directly. Sorry. Okay, so with a cash advance, there's generally really high fees. So I strongly encourage you not to use it. Sometimes you don't have any other choice if you need cash and you don't have any other options. But it's not a great thing to rely upon. You end up having to pay a high fee in order to have that option of borrowing money that is cash directly. Balance transfer is when you move a balance, so how much you owe on the credit card, from one card to another. And then you often receive a lower interest. So this is how credit card companies are like promotions, where they're like, do this and then we'll give you a deal. So if you move your balance to us, then we'll give you 0 interest for 6 months or something. So sometimes it can be a really great offer. Not always, but it can be a useful thing to do sometimes. They can be a bit confusing and tricky in terms of if you don't necessarily get 0%. If it's offering you 0% for a balance transfer, then it's just saying for what you're transferring over. It's not offering you 0% on all of your purchases that you make from then on. So it's something to be aware of. And then a minimum payment is the minimum amount of money you need to pay by the due date, or else you'll be charged a fee. So they don't necessarily want you to pay all of your payment back, because then they make money off of you in interest, but they do want you to make a minimum payment to show that you are aware and you are still committing to pay back the money. And then your credit score, again, is the number that rates your credit worthiness. Okay, so what's the point of having a credit card if you're going to end up paying for it? So it's really useful to have in emergencies. Sometimes if all of a sudden your hot water tank busts and you need to buy a new one and you hadn't planned for that, and so you need hot water. So you have to put it on your credit card in order to get your hot water tank fixed now and be able to keep going and pay off over time. Or you are on a road trip and your car breaks down and you're on a road trip, your car doesn't break down, but the highway gets closed because of an accident or a storm or something, and you end up having to stay at a hotel or something along the way. And again, it's not something you were planning for. So having an emergency fund can be useful. If you want to buy a big ticket item, sometimes debit cards or cash can be limited. And so using a credit card can be useful if you're buying something that is quite expensive. Establishing credit. It is actually useful in our world that is based on money to establish your credit. So it is not good to have 0 credit. It's not good to have no credit history, because it means that if you ever do apply for credit, or you do want to apply for like buying a house and getting a mortgage or something like that, buying a car and getting a car loan, there's no history of you showing that you do pay back your credit that you borrow. So it is best to, if you're going to get a credit card to establish your credit, it's a really good idea to get a credit card and use it that you only use it when you have the money. So don't use it as free money, but use it as a way to access the money that you already have, because then it shows that you are being responsible with your money. It can be safer than cash, because if, for example, recently I tried to buy a plane ticket online through a company and it just didn't go through. I didn't get any confirmation from it. So I gave up and I used a different airline and bought a ticket with them. But then my credit card got charged not once, but twice for the plane, a ticket that I never got confirmation about. I never completed that purchase and I didn't have any information about it. So I couldn't contact the airline and say, I'm canceling this, because I didn't have a confirmation number. I didn't have anything that I could log in and say that like anything to attach me to anything. They just had charged me. So I was able to contact my credit card company and they could dispute the charge and say, you charged this person money, but you never actually gave them the goods or service. You never actually gave them an airplane ticket. So that was really useful, instead of having to pay for 3 airplane tickets when I only needed to use 1. So if I'd done it in cash, there might not have been any way to get that money back. Also, so if you just do want to buy plane tickets or go to hotels or use a car rental, having a credit card is often what they require in order to book you those things. You can get protection from fraud on the internet. So again, the credit card companies have security departments that mean that if someone tries to use your credit card without your permission, or a company, like I just said, the airline charges you and that wasn't supposed to happen, the credit card company will protect you and support you. So credit cards use compound interest when they are calculating the interest that you're going to earn based on the money that you are borrowing. So it's the same as we've done before. So it's A equals P times 1 plus R divided by N to the exponent NT, where A is your final amount, P is your principal borrowed, R is your interest rate. Remember, it's got to be a decimal. N is the number of compounding periods per year, and T is the time in years. Okay, so now we sort of understand how credit cards work. Then there's an application process that we want to understand. And this is on page 3 of your IL booklet. So when you're applying for a credit card company, to a credit card company, you need to give them a bunch of information about yourself in order for them to give you a card and say that they're willing to give you access to this credit. So you need to have some ID. You need to have, this card tells you need to have 2 forms of government ID, like a passport or a driver's license. You need to have a utility bill, or something that proves where you live. And you need to have a pay stub or job letter that tells them that you're employed. And then you fill out your name, your address, how long you've lived there, your date of birth, so they get your age, your family status, and your employer, how long you've been with that employer, how much money you make, all this information. It's personal information, but this is why it's important to make sure that you're applying to actual credit card company, because you are giving them your personal information so that they can decide if they're going to give you a credit card. If you have a co-applicant, someone who you want to apply with, then you can put their information in as well. And then they ask you some financial information in terms of how much money how much debt you already have. Do you own a home? Are you having a mortgage payment? Are you paying rent? Do you have other loans? Do you have other credit cards? Do you have assets, which are things that have value already? So like a car or boats or things like that. Other accounts, savings accounts that you might have, investments. So they ask you all that information so they get a general idea of your financial health. And that's all you really need to know in terms of doing the support questions on page 4, 1, and 2. So that should set you up to be able to look at those applications and answer those questions. So then how do you choose a credit card? So this is on page 5 of your IO booklet. And so there are various things that you're going to look for a credit card, and it's going to be dependent upon you as an individual. So you might want a lower or a manageable interest rate. Many of us probably want a lower interest rate because then we're paying less money back to the company. I'd strongly encourage to start with or to always have a credit card that doesn't have an annual fee, where you just have to pay a certain amount of money every year, whether or not you're using the card, but just to have the card. I don't love that, so I don't choose to do that, but you, again, decide for yourself. You can have one that has a free credit score tracker, which can be from FICO. This can be useful in order to, so that you are aware of your financial health. I would encourage you to have one that has a low or no security deposit. So you're not just saying you don't have to give them a certain amount of money for them to agree to give you a card. Again, not something that I would choose to do, to have a security deposit. You can also look at the rewards. So you can think about, I only have access to this one store and it has a credit card. So maybe it makes sense to use their credit card because then I'm going to get points, rewards, which might end up meaning I get free groceries or gas or something like that. And which attaches to where you're going to use it. So are you, again, cards give you lots of rewards or points or cash back for buying a certain amount, like buying gas, or for paying it to pay your bills or to buy your groceries or whatever. So it's just good to pay attention to that. You can go online, and I'll link this in the show notes, but you can see that there are lots of different programs. So there's various different places that have different kinds of programs, different kinds of point systems that you can then go into, and you can find out more about that credit card type. And this triangle is Canadian Tire, so that it's going to give you some information about the type of rewards that you might get. So doing research is really important in order to figure out what is best for you, because it's going to be different for every person. Okay, so now you can do question number 3 on page 5. Delaying payments. So let's understand the cost of borrowing, because this is the tricky part. Lots of people are like, it's free money, great. But this is not true. It is not free money. So if you do not immediately pay back the money you have charged on a credit card, you begin to be charged interest. So on your credit card application, there's a legally mandated, so they have to have an information box on the application that spells out exactly how you might be charged money. It's fine print, it's a lot, but I strongly encourage you not to skip reading it, because it's important to understand what it is you're getting yourself into. So here's an example of one application that has some of the fine print. It isn't necessarily going to be exactly the same as this, but it probably was something similar for various credit card companies in Canada. So it talks about the annual interest rates. It's going to tell you the rates. They might have a promotion. So this one, if it has a promotion at the beginning, it might tell you that. So it says here, for eligible transactions that post to your account within 90 days of your account opening, you get a promotional rate. So balance transfers are 1.99% and deposits are 1.99% for the first 10 billing cycles. So that is the promotion they're trying to convince you to use their card. Then they also say things like this, where it says these rates may increase earlier to your standard rate if you, 1, do not pay your total minimum payment due by the total minimum payment due date, or 2, exceed your credit limit. So it says that these rates are only applicable if you follow all the rules, basically. Then your standard rates are for purchases, 19.99%, for balance transfers, 21.99%, for access to checks and deposits, 21.99%, and cash advances, 24.99%. So like I told you, cash advances are higher percentage rate. Then here it says default rates. Your standard rate will increase by 5% if your total minimum payment due is late more than once during 12 consecutive billing cycles. If you then pay each total minimum payment due on time for 12 consecutive billing cycles, following the rate increase, then your standard rate will be decreased by 5%. So this is saying that your rate will go up by 5% if you miss more than, if you're late more than once in a year. So again, this is why it's important to pay attention so that you're aware of these sorts of rules. Then they have other things that I'll tell you about. So an interest-free grace period. This is standard and this is kind of confusing for many folks. So this says you will not be charged interest on each new purchase for a minimum grace period of 21 days if you pay the new balance total in full by the total minimum payment due date for the account statement on which such new purchase first appear. You will always be charged interest on balance transfers, access checks, deposits, and cash advances from the date such transactions occur. So what this means is that when you buy something, you have 21 days before interest is being charged to you, as long as you keep paying off your balance. So if you don't carry a balance, if you don't leave money owed beyond your due date on your credit card, then you always have this grace period where until you're billed, until you are paying back, until you're paying interest. But that's only for purchases. Anything else that you use your credit card for, then you get charged interest right away. The other tricky thing is that if you do carry a balance, so you forget to pay, you choose not to pay, you don't have access, whatever, or you pay a minimum, or you pay part of the balance, not the whole thing, then any purchases you make after that do not have a grace period. You still end up paying interest as soon as you buy something. And so you end up paying more for those things that you're buying. Just be aware of that. So your minimum payment is the next one that tells you. So it's the total minimum payment due will be the sum of the current payment due plus the past due amount subject to a minimum of $15 for this card. The current payment due date will be the sum of 1% of your total new balance plus 2 all interest charges. If your new balance is less than a total of $15, then it will be a minimum payment will be equal to the new balance in total. So the new balance is not always paying just your minimum balance. Does not generally, the goal of that is not for you to pay off your credit card. It's just for you to keep making sure that you're paying something so that they can still be making money off of you. And then there's foreign currency conversion. So it tells you how much the rate that you're going to convert in terms of what other countries you might be buying money or using your card in. And then this one has no annual fee. So yeah, and if it does have an annual fee, it would tell you there. Then it tells you about other fees as well. So if you're going to have a balance transfer or wire transfer or cash advance, it tells you how much those fees are. This is on top of the interest. These are just fees that you have to pay. And then any other accounts. So if you pay over your credit limit or you spend over your credit limit, then you're going to pay $25 just for going over your limit. If you return a payment, or if a payment is returned, so that's going to be $20, sorry. If you want an extra copy of your statement, that's $2.50. This one says inactive credit balance. If your account is inactive and has a credit balance, you will be charged annually on a date that your account was last active for either the credit balance or $25. So if you leave money owing on your card and then forget about your card, they're going to keep just charging you money for leaving that balance there. So these are all the little tricky things that how they make money off of you using their card to buy things. So again, I'm just reiterating the minimum payments part. Paying only the minimum means it will take longer to chip away at your balance. So in the meantime, interest continues to be added onto what you owe. If the interest rate is excessively high, your minimum payment may not even cover the interest charged for the month. So it's like this compounding thing where you just end up having to pay more and more and more. So minimum payments, sometimes you need to use them, but it's best to pay all of your credit card, your balance completely as often as you can. Like every month, like always pay it off. Here is an example of a credit card. It is just an example one. It's not a real one. So you can see there's lots of information on, including a whole bunch of fine print again, in terms of finding out different details about your card. but they have your statement period. So when this is talking about when your date is, like when they printed it, your account number, which is your credit card number. And then they have, if you have questions, call their call center. If you need disability support, this is the number, the TTY number here as well. Then they tell you the payment due date. So when you have to pay your money by, so they printed this on August 6th. And now they're saying you have to pay it by the 27th of August. That's that 21 grace period, right? And you have to pay a total minimum payment of $10. And then it tells you if you have any previous balance, any money that you carried over, that's zero. So no, you didn't. So that means you don't have any interest because you didn't carry anything. Any payments that you made, it says $500. So you made a payment of $500 at some point. And any new purchases charges was $923.52. So that means you have left over of $423.52 that you need to owe. Here it tells you your credit limit. So that's $15,000 for this card, which is fairly high. It really ranges. For some people, it's $1,000. Some people it's $50,000. Like that depends on your credit score and history. Credit available is going to be that $15,000 subtract our new balance. And that's how much we still have left. Here it tells you your interest rates, which if it changes, it'll be there so that you would know that as well. And then each bill has all that fine print. So you can go back and make sure that you're understanding what it is, how you're paying things, how much you're being charged. It isn't super fun to read. I don't read it very often, but it's good to have it so that you know what the information is. Then it gives you a list of your transactions. So when it happened, it sometimes takes a couple of days to post it actually to your account to be processed. So there's a post date, and then it tells you details about what it is that you spent it on. So here's McDonald's. Okay. Here's a Amazon purchase. Here is a Sushi California purchase. Oh, here you made a payment. So the details are here that tell you what it is that that is about. The payment is negative because you have made that payment. So they subtract that off the balance that you're owing. And then you have this slip at the bottom that again has your account number, when your payment due date is, your minimum payment, and your new balance. So that's the most that you owe and how much you're gonna pay. You could write on there if you wanted to. Traditionally, this part was like ripped off and mailed back with like a check. Historically, that's how credit cards originally were paid. But now you can pay it and tells you how to do it online or through telephone banking. You can take this to your bank and you can pay it right there. Or you can still mail a check or a money order with this part, that if that's the best way for you. And then it keeps going. It tells you if you have more transactions, it has continues to list all the transactions that you did in this past month. And then if you have any interest charges, they also tell you that. So that is understanding credit card statement and the fine print, which is really super important to understand. Okay, so here, let's see. So it says, calculate how much interest John Doe will owe if he doesn't make any more purchases or payments until September 27th, 2019. So if he doesn't pay off this credit card balance, he has a balance of $423.52. If he doesn't pay that, how much is he going to own in interest? So that is, remember, this is all calculated. This is like compound interest. So we're going to have A equals P times 1 plus R over N to the exponent NT. I forgot to tell you, or we didn't read it somewhere, but your interest rates are compounded daily for credit cards. So that's really important to know. So our principal is $423.52. Our rate is 19.99%, so 0.1999 divided by 365 to the exponent, 365 times We are doing it months, so from August 27th to September 27th. So that is 31 days out of 365. Okay, so we're going to put this into our calculator. And find out how much interest we would have to pay. And this, again, is the same as what we've been doing before. So it's not different. We're just finding that information in a slightly different place. Ah. It's 31. It's always, these can be tricky. Don't know why it doesn't want to let me do a 3. There we go. So $430.77. Okay, but is that the interest? No, that's the total amount. So remember, interest is equal to your amount, take away your principal. So $430.77, take away $423.52. So that is going to be $7.25 is how much John Doe would have to pay in interest for not paying it for a month. Okay, so now you can do the support questions on page 6, questions 4 and 5. All right, let's consolidate what we learned today. We've learned a lot. So this has been lesson 11, credit cards. First, we wanted to make sure that we understood the vocabulary and how to actually apply for a credit card. That is all an initial important to know. Then we talked about choosing a credit card. So understanding interest rates, annual fees, credit score tracker, security deposits, rewards, considering all of those things when you're choosing a card. And then also thinking about where you're actually going to use that card and how that might affect what card you might want to choose. And then we talked about the true cost of actually borrowing. So minimum payments, there's interest charged immediately on your balance and all new purchases if you're only making minimum payments. So you end up having to pay them more money if you're only making minimum payments. So something to be aware of. And you use the compound interest formula to calculate all the interest that you are going to need to pay. So hopefully you can identify the pros and cons of credit cards, and that you can explain the annual fees, the APRs, the cash advance fees, and minimum payments. And you can calculate the cost of carrying a balance, which is super important to realize. All right, and that's what we covered today. So if you have any questions, please reach out and connect with me. You can call me at the office at 807-737-1488, extension 2209. You can call me toll free also at 1-800-667-3703. Send me an email at bronwyn.slate, and that's spelled BRONWYN.SLATE@nnec.on.ca. Connect with me through Facebook, where my name is B Slate Wahsa, and also my YouTube channel is also called B Slate Wahsa. And remember, we have a playlist called MEL3E, so all of our resources you can find there. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., though I teach 9 to 11, so that's not a great time to try to get a hold of me. And if that doesn't work for you and you do need support, feel free to contact me and we can try to figure out a time that works for both of us outside of those hours so that I can still support you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a lovely day. Which